Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Decryption, and I hope you are well. In the previous episode of the Medic Missions, we set it up so we actually had a fully working game loop. We can go in and get in the medic cart, we can drive around, we can start the quest, and you can see the NPC will spawn, in this case a sphere. We can pick it up, we can take it back to the station to hopefully drop them off. And then we've got passenger 2, so we can go and collect the passenger who's sick and dying. Then we can go and collect another one over here, like so. And then we can take it back, and then we know that we've completed it and we get our rewards, like so. However, in today's episode, we're going to look at adding more UI to it and adding the timers. So if you get out of the medic missions, it fails straight away. We're going to make it so it has a time delay. And then we're also going to make it so as you start it, you have a timer to pick up the first NPC. If you don't, it fails. And when you pick them up, you get a small time increase. As well as we're going to say how many seats are free in the cart. So in this one, we're probably going to say 6 or whatever. But that's what we're going to look at today. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do before we jump into anything is just solve a minor bug that I've discovered from last time. Is in our quest task where we set up the levels, when it ends the task, it loops through all the actors and just destroys them. However, sometimes this actor has already been destroyed if we pick it up, for instance. So I'm just going to drag the destroy actor out, and I'm just going to wrap an is valid around here. And this is going to stop it erroring if it exists in the world. Otherwise, if it's being destroyed, it won't touch it anymore. So if we just quickly try that error now, just to see if it's fixed, we can get in the cart, we can start it. If we exit, you can see we don't get any errors anymore. So that's fixed that. So the UI that we need to look at, I've been looking at our inspiration of the GTA series again. And you can see on this GTA series video, the paramedic missions, on the new San Andreas at least, it has this time left, level, and seats free. And I think that would be pretty cool for us to actually use. So we'll start with the basic UI, getting this stuff added, and then depending on what type of vehicle you're in, you could be in a small cart, a large cart, you could just be giving somebody a hand. We can say how many seats you've got free. The levels we can populate from the quest, so that should be nice and easy. And then the time left is where we start introducing all the time. So let's jump straight on with that. Let's go and find our UI that we set up to handle the medic mission. So that's just my medic minigame. And when we started the game, this UI, I believe, always exists. I don't believe we destroy it. So let's just have a quick look around just to make sure we don't destroy it. When we trigger the minigame, nope, we just simply hide it. That doesn't mean we destroy it. Yeah, we just play an animation and and deactivate the timer. So we're all good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually collapse down this overlay start text, and I'm going to come and add in another overlay, and I'll call this one O_progress. So I'm going to come and add a vertical box under this, and I'll call it VB_progress. And then inside here, I'm going to add a variety of horizontal boxes to control each individual section. So time, so I'll call this HB time. I'll duplicate it with Control or Command D, and I'll call this HB level, and then HB seats. Inside each of these, I will add a common text block. And if you remember from last time, if you don't have the common text block, then just use a regular text. I'm going to use a common text because then it allows me to reuse the same styles over and over again. So you can see I can come and select a style of notification. Yeah, notification might work. I'm just going to pick a nice subheader. I think subheaders are good. So I'll call this CT_time left. Then I will actually duplicate this under it and call it CT time. And I'm going to set this to a different one. Like, does hovered work? I'm just trying to get a look at the colors. Let's hide the overlay at the top. So it's a bit small, so I'll probably pick a different one. Actually, I'll change this one over to dialogue, and that one over to dialogue hovered. So you can actually see that there's a visual difference. I'll give it a little bit of padding on the left, just to bump it out away a little bit, maybe like that. And now we can start populating the text. So we'll call this time left, and we'll set this to just something like 0 to something like that, just so you can visually see it. I'll click the vertical box and just make sure it's ticked size to content. That'll make sure it all stretches over nicely. And then I'm basically going to copy these and paste it inside each box. And then we can populate it. So this one will be CT underscore level, label. And this one will be CT level. I'll flip them around. And the text on this can be level. And the one on this one will just say level 1. And then the one down here we'll call CT seats. And then this one will be CT seats. Flip them around again, and then we'll do everything. So we'll just call this one seats. I think it's going to look better when it's all capitalized. Now you will notice on the GTA one, they've very right aligned it so it all spreads around like that, but the actual values are in order. So let's just do that as well. So I'm going to select all of the value versions and just make sure it's ticked as right aligned. And then for the headers, I will just make sure it's also right aligned, but it's also ticked as fill. And you'll see it kind of does the same thing as the Rockstar one where it bumps across. It looks a bit weird up there, but if we grab the vertical box now and we'll position it, well, probably just over here, maybe up by 200, just so it's not directly there. And we'll move it away from the wall by 50, something like that. But now, if we start it this time and play the game, you'll see it's in a nice position where it is there. It lines up with my weapon, at least in my game, so you can play around with it. One thing I will do is just actually reduce the spacing, so instead of 10, because it looks a bit much, we'll just do 5 for each of these, just to bring it a bit closer. So by default, I will set this VB progress as a variable and set its visibility to be collapsed. So when we start the game, it's invisible. And then when we go back to the graph here, I'm going to come and add a new event here called update progress. And then the first thing it'll do is it'll grab the progress and it'll just set its visibility like so. And we'll set it to non-hit testable. Otherwise, if you have anything clickable, you won't be able to. And now that the progress is visible, after this, we can now populate the values with it. So all 3 of these are pretty much going to need to be updated independently. So we don't want to be running it all at the same time. So instead of update progress, I'm actually just going to call it start progress. And all that's going to do is start the visibility. This is almost like an event begin play, if you wish. Because we're using the construct here, show the details. But when you click start the minigame, that's when we'll call this one here. This is where we'll eventually start the timer. Or whether we just display the timer, we don't know. We might set it in the quest. But for now, let's actually populate the details of the UI. So first thing we need is the seats free. So back on our vehicle card, do we have an amount of passengers? Yes, we do. We have a max passengers. So that's exactly what we want. So let's jump over to our UI here. And in the graph, we will modify the start progress and we'll just add an input action. So when we officially start it, we will say max seats and we'll just set it to an integer. And then we can take this down here, pressing the R key to make some little spaces. We'll move the comment away. Then we can get our seats and we can just set the text and we will plug in our integer like so. With a bit of cleanup, we now have it setting our init max seats. The level will always be level 1, so we will just reset the time, because if you fail it and then restart it at the same time, the UI will change. So we'll just reset the level back to number 1, and then we can update that as we go. So default level. And then when we start the gameplay timer, that's where we can actually update the timer. So let's get this working. So back in our vehicle medical cart, we will just grab our Medic UI, drag off and call start progress. So the max seats free will of course be our variable, because you're never going to start the quest with people in it. So get max passengers. And now if we start it, you will see when we jump into it, it says press M to start the minigame, and you can see it started. We have a basic timer. We've got 5 seats free on this one and level 1. So next is, as we pick passengers up, it needs to tick down that seats free. So in order to update the free seats, what we can do is when we actually pick one up in the BPA vehicle, we currently have a array that we pick up the passengers with, and we can get and add a passenger. And if we add a passenger, what we can actually do is just use an event dispatcher to tell the world, hey, we've picked someone up. And then just to declutter our UI a little bit, so we're not jumping between the UI and the game and the game and the UI often, all we'll do is make the UI just bind to the cart and say, tell me whenever you've picked someone up. And then it will automatically update itself without us having to jump to the UI every time. So when we add a passenger, I'm going to go to the event dispatchers down here. I'm going to click add, and I'll add a new on passenger. And then whilst I'm here, I'll also do on passenger exit. And then we'll drag the return node off a little bit. And when we add a passenger, we will simply call on passenger entered. And then what I will do is actually on the passenger entered, I'll add a input of the passengers. And that means we can now pass in the array of passengers here. So we'll do length. And it means it'll just save us a little bit of time when we update the UI later. And then when a passenger exits, we'll do the exact same thing. But instead of entered, we'll simply call the on passenger exited. But we will, of course, do the same thing of passing the integer into it, passengers, and we'll just drag off this and do length. Now that we've done it, if you ever get this error, it's like a weird Unreal 5 error, just right click and do refresh. It's just because the variable wasn't named the same for some reason. And now back on the UI, when we first start the progress, we're coming all the way across instead of the gameplay timer for now. We will get the player pawn. And since we're in the medic UI, we know we've always got to be in some sort of medical vehicle. So I'm going to drag off and do pass to BPA vehicle, which is our core vehicle. And then we can now assign on passenger entered. And you see, we're doing assign just because it's a bit quicker than doing a normal bind. However, since we need to do the exited, I'll show you how we do that one. Just drag off and we'll do bind on exited. And you'll see the only reason we do assign is we've now got to create the event manually. Super easy though, just drag down and do add custom event and call it on passenger exited event. You see, it's a lot easier just to use assign, but they do essentially the same. So when we get both of these, what do we want to do? We want to update the seats text, so I'll just add a new function called update seats. I'll pass in a input saying seats free, and I'll also pass in the max seats, which we'll sort in a moment. And then if I take the max seats and minus the seats free from it, like so, we'll flip them around just to make it look cleaner. Now we can grab the seats and we can set the text, and we'll plug the integer into it like so. It'll automatically convert it for us. Now back on our event graph, we can call this function update seats text, and we'll pass in the current passenger length, and we'll do the same over here. But you'll notice we need to pass in the max seats. So what I think is, since we're picking up and dropping off passengers, it might be good to know the max length whilst we're doing it. So back on our BPA vehicle, I'm just going to modify our two event dispatchers to have a second input of max passengers. And then we'll do the same for the exited passengers. And then just make sure we update it here using the correct variables, get max passengers. And then we'll do the same when we add a passenger right here, we'll get them. And you'll notice it's done the weird thing again, where it's saying new param, just simply right click refresh and hit compile. It's done it on the same thing of the exited, I didn't notice that one. Refresh. And now back on our widget here, you can see we've got the max passengers. Let's plug it all in like so and hit compile and save. So now if we test out the UI, we should be able to see the UI go up and down as we pick passengers. So we've got 5 seats free. As we collect this one, boom, it's gone to 3. So this is a funky one. It's actually reporting the player as a passenger, which is something we entirely do require, is the player to be treated as a passenger. Because if you've got a car with 5 seats, the driver is going to be one of them. It's just something that we have to do. But we don't want to count the player in the max passengers, because that's incorrect. It's a driver. We don't want to class the driver. So back on our main vehicle here. So all we're going to do is come to the UI, and then where we set the max passengers here for the max seats, we're simply going to remove one from it. And you'll see if we start it this time, when we start it, you will see we have 4 seats, which is correct because we have the player already counted. If we pick it up, you see it goes down to 3. As we drop off, it will go back up to 4. And as we pick up 2 of them, you'll see it'll go even lower. and then we can successfully drop it back off here, like so, and it goes up to 4. So that is those two working. So now let's update the level. So just like we did with the UI, where we connected back to the vehicle, so get vehicle seats, what we can also do is get the current quest and get the level of what we're on. So on the quest here, we can get the current task, and that will tell us the level. But it's going to be a bit jiggery-pokery to do, but it's completely okay. So back on our medic minigame here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come all the way over here, and I'm going to right-click and do get narrative component, because we're using narrative to drive the quest. If you're not, if you've built your own blueprint logic or something else, basically just get the quest here so we can get the active task so we can see which level we're on. That's all you need to do. So in my case, I'm going to do get quest instance, which in my case would be the medic minigame. Then I'm going to do get current, and this is going to get us the silver one here. And then from here, we can get branches. And because all ours is built off of one branch, we're safe to just do get. Then we will get the tasks, and then we will again just get the first one. And now from here, we should successfully be able to do to our narrative task medic level, and then we can get our level like so. So it is a bit long-winded for the one we're using, but it's exactly what we need to do in order to get it to work. It's also how the quest journal works, really. It loops over all the states, it loops over all the branches, it loops over all the tasks and renders it. So I'm actually going to convert this to a function because it's a bit mad, and I'll call it update level text. We'll add it back over here to the top of this, update level. I'll open this up, and after it's done all of this logic over here, and now that we've got the level, we can simply drag in the CT level, set text, and we can put it in like so. So now that we've set the text and we've applied the update level, we also need to check for when it actually updates the current state so we can get to the next level. So what I'm going to do is just copy the narrative component in the quest instance. Before we do the update level text, I'm just going to paste it in, and I'm going to do assign on task completed, and I'm going to move the level text below this instead. And now what this is going to do is, instead of setting it right at the start, it's going to wait for narrative to tell it it's updated. So we set the default one over here, and then when narrative updates, it's going to tell us to update the level text like so. The completed one simply means it's either failed or not failed. So it means we don't have to worry about decreasing the level later. So if we compile and save all of that now and give it a try, as we get in the cart and we progress up the levels, it should update the level. So you can see level 1, let's pick up the passenger, let's drop it off at the hospital, and you can see the level has gone to number 2 and our seat. So how cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? It is really taking shape now. So you can see as I collect this one, in theory, not see level 3, it should disappear. There, okay, so we've got a few little bits to work on about hiding it, but that's all good. So the reason we're getting some errors is because when our quest successfully gets to the end one here, there's no more branches, there's no more states. So our update here thinks that it needs to run something when it actually doesn't. So what I'm going to do on the event graph, when we complete it, we actually need to make sure that this quest doesn't do this anymore. So I'm going to make some space over here, and I'm going to assign on quest succeeded, but also I'm going to assign on quest failed. So we've got whether you fail or not, and these are essentially going to do the same thing. So I'm going to put them pretty much close to each other, a bit uniquely. But what I'm going to do is actually tell it to unbind event from completed, and it's going to be this event here. We will tidy this up in a moment, so we'll do that on both like so. And now let's give it a good tidy up, because this is a mess. So when we fail, put this like this, I thought it would look neater, but so it looks a bit of a mess, but let's work through it. It's just one of the issues with blueprints a little bit, is we get the quest instance, which we could promote to a variable to make it neater. So let's do that and call current quest instance, because that should be alive throughout the entire process, so that's already in memory. Then let's connect it to there, and then we'll also connect it down here, and then we'll also connect it to the quest failed, and we'll also connect it over to this on quest task completed, And then finally, we'll also connect it to the unbind here. So what this is actually doing is saying if we succeed or fail the quest, then unbind from this event here, because we don't want to know about it. And that's what these red lines are for over here, is connecting back to this event here to say unbind from it. But what we can also do to make this even easier and less error prone is on our update level text, we're simply going to check if these gets exist when we actually try to do it. So I'm going to drag off, and on the branches, I'll just say if it's got a length more than, then we will continue on to try and update it. And if it does, then that's where it gets the first one, because it's got at least the first. And then we can also do the same thing for the quest tasks. So we'll say get the length is more than 0, we'll add a branch, connect it. And now if we try it this time, when we complete the task, it shouldn't be as prone to erroring when we actually complete it or we fail it. So we get in, let's start the minigame. You can see it's bound to everything. If we come and pick up a passenger and then exit, you see it's failed, but we don't have any errors, so that's good. Let's get back in and restart it. You can see it's all reset properly. Let's go and pick up a passenger there, and we take it over to here. Let's just finish the quest to make sure that's working too. And now, once we complete it, no more errors. We're all good. So the last few things we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is actually work on the timers to actually show how long you've got left. So when we start the quest here, we need to essentially start a timer. The UI needs to track the timer in order to show it. Since our quest is driving the game loop, as in it fails if you drop it or anything like that, I think this will be a good time to place our timer in here. Because after all, this isn't a quest as in can have a variety of them. They'll all be the same quest. It's one thing. That's what we're using it for. So what I'm going to do on get event graph, I'm going to override the function quest started here, and we'll add a call to the parent function just in case we ever do anything on the master. And then we can now set our timer here. So I'm going to drag off and do set timer by function name. The function name we will call quest timer. We'll say it will run every second, but it will be looping, and we'll also promote it to a variable, and we'll say medic quest timer. However, what we're actually going to do is set another integer below called current quest time, and this will be a float. And then I'll give this a default value when I hit compile of, say, how long? Let's give it 3 minutes. So we'll say 60 times 3, and you can see 180. And this is going to represent the amount of seconds we have. And then when our timer by function name runs, so we'll call it quest timer update, we'll create this function, quest timer update. We know it's going to be ticking down every second, and then we can set the current quest time to simply negate a single second from. If we check this time and say, are you less than or equal to 0? If it's true, then it means we've failed. We've basically ran out of time. So what I'm going to do back on our quest graph, you've exited the vehicle. I'm going to add another fail state, and I'll set the description to you ran out of time. I'll make it do the same events where it forgets it so we can redo it. And then we'll name the ID, QS, medic, minigame, time. I can copy the ID back on our quest timer update. I will simply call enter state, and from the new state, call and pass in our ID. So just jumping back over this again, super easily. When we start the quest, it starts a timer. I'm pretty sure we don't have to do this, but I'm going to set the default anyway here as well to the same thing, 180. I'm pretty sure you don't have to, but we'll do it anyway. So when the quest starts, it'll reset the value back to default, and then this timer will start ticking every second. And then that will call this function name, which in here will decrease our current quest time by a second each time. If we hit 0 or less than 0, then it will simply tell it to go to the timeout state, which will fail the quest. The only thing now is to actually tell it to update the UI when this happens. So luckily, let's add an event dispatcher on timer update. We'll pass in the new time, so new time, set it to a float. We'll actually call this before the branch here. So after it's set it, and before it checks the length, we'll call on timer update. mainly so if we do hit 0, it will switch to showing 0 on the timer just for a second before everything else runs and it fails again. Now that we've done that, back on our UI, where we've already got the quest instance, because we stored it as a variable earlier, right at the end over here, where we want to start the gameplay timer, we can get the quest instance. Now we need a way to actually get the timer, which we can't do from a generic quest, but since this is going to be the medic one, I'm actually just going to cast to it before we use it. So I'll cast to minigame medic, and the reason I'm casting to it, we could cast to it and then get the timer, but then we're going to have to set our own timer up essentially to watch that timer, which is why we're using the event dispatcher. But sadly, we can't get an event dispatcher through an interface, which I really want one day Unreal to add, because I think that'll be amazing functionality. But now that we've casted to it, we'll reset the data type of this one to be minigame medic, QB minigame medic, just so we can get all the specific variables we need. Nothing should change. And then right at the end, where we've got the current quest instance, we can now assign on timer update. And then we can set our timer's text because we now have the new time. So let's get the time. We'll do set text. And then from the float time, we will do 2 seconds. And you'll see it's got time seconds to string, and we can plug it in. And that should, in theory, make the timer all formatted nicely. So we'll highlight all of this, wrap it with the comment, and let's give it a go, ladies and gentlemen. There's still a little bit of cleanup we need to do just to make it look nice, but in theory, this should be the game's timer started. So as I start it, you'll see we've got 2 minutes, 58 seconds, and it is officially counting down. So we will, of course, make our game bigger in the future, so you don't have to worry about the timer being so large. For testing purposes, let's just come and set its default value to be something like 10 seconds. So let's give it a try. Now that we've reduced the timer, let's just make sure it does actually fail. So you can see we've got 10 seconds, 8, 7, 6, and we've just got the passenger. We've not done the boost yet, and then it will go 0, mission failed. And you can see the timer is still going, which is, like I said, we need to clean it up. But as a proof of concept, the timer is. So let's crack on with it. So let's start by turning the timer off when it reaches 0. So back on our quest, we've already promoted it to a variable. On the timer update, if we get past 0 here, we're going to enter the state of failure. We can grab the timer and we can simply call clear and invalidate like so. Compile and save. That will stop the timer from running. So once it hits 0. Next, back on our UI, where we assign on the timer update here, right at the beginning, where we start setting all our defaults up. After we've bound to it, let's just set the default text for it as soon as it starts. So we'll just copy this bit down here, paste it up. We'll just convert this bit down here to a function, update timer, and it'll pass in the in seconds. We can now paste that back up here, and from the current quest instance, we can get the quest time and pass that in as well, like so. So that should now handle the defaults being added. So when we actually finish the quest or fail it, we also need to remove the UI. So what I'm actually going to do, instead of binding them all the same way like this, I'm actually going to create a function under it just for now, add custom event called onQuestEnded. So when it ends, it doesn't matter whether we complete or succeed it, we just need to remove the task. So I'm going to add this function here to unbind it. I'll create an event to this one where I'll pass in the completed task, and then I can now simply call up here onQuestEnded. I can do the same for this one here, and we've not got any more long red lines anymore. But the other benefit of doing it this way is now we can end more things. So for instance, I know we need to unbind from the timer, so I can unbind from timer update, and then from here I will create an event for our timer as well, on timer update event, which is this one here. And then we can now also do remove from parent to basically destroy the UI right at the end. So it doesn't matter how we finish it, whether we fail it or not, it should come and successfully end it all once we've done it there. So now if we hit run, ladies and gentlemen, if we get in the cart, you can see the timer has started. If we get out the cart, it instantly fails, the UI is hid. That is good news. If we restart it and start the mission, we will see the passenger there. Let's go and pick it up in time. You can see it's still ticking. I haven't got time to finish this, so it's going to fail. There, the timer has disappeared. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is coming along very, very nicely. The last thing we're going to do is add boosts to the timer. So if you pick a passenger up, it should give you a little boost on the time. And if you complete a round, it should give you a bigger boost, because that's what the San Andreas one does. You can absolutely fine-tune this to anything you want. So on mine, I'm going to come to the quest, and I'm going to do the same thing the UI does for the passengers. So here, where we pick up a passenger entered and exited, I'm actually going to come and copy all of that and reuse it in our quest. The main reason is because it's good to keep everything separated as best you can. If we're entangling the UI with the quest and the player, if you ever need to change it or mod it, it makes it very difficult to do. Which is why if you put a little bit of extra thought into the design of it, like we're doing, trying to separate it using interfaces and event dispatchers, it makes it a bit easier. So we don't actually care about the exited, so we can get rid of that one. We don't want the update seats text. So whenever we pick up a passenger, then we can simply get our current quest time, and we can add to it some value that we want, and then we can reset it again. So let's say we will set it to, so the GTA one seems to give you 30 seconds. I'm going to just give us 15 for now, just to test it. So all you need to do in order to boost it up every time you do it. But what I'm also going to do is come and promote this to a variable called current medical cart. Then what I'm also going to do is come and override the function on quest task completed. So that's when we actually complete a quest task. So one of these levels. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did down here, but instead I'm going to give them a nice little bonus because they've done well. I'm going to give them 25 seconds. So they get an extra 10 seconds. Let's compile. And now if we try it this time, ladies and gentlemen, each time we pick a passenger up, the time should go up. Each time we finish a level, the time should go up, giving the players just that fighting chance. You absolutely are going to have to fine-tune this for your game size to make it work. So you see the time is running out. If I pick this up, I've now got 19 seconds. We absolutely need to make it update the UI instantly, but that's okay. If I complete this off now, boom, we've got an extra boost there. We pick up the final passengers. You see the game has now gone from impossible to, it's a bit easy at the moment, but it is doable. So if I hit that one, there you go. We've now got quest timers working. So the final thing I want to do is I just want to make it work a bit quicker, because you saw we picked it up, we'd have to wait a second for it to update. So what I'm actually going to do is just grab on timer update here and call it after each time we update it, passing in the new time. And we'll do it the same over here as well. And now it should be almost instantly responsive of the new time updates, making it far better. So if I press M to start, you can see it started, the time is ticking down. Let's find a passenger. Boom, instant update. You can add sounds and everything to it. There we go, 42. I can now take my time doing it, connect that one, and I can collect this one as well. There we go, we've got a minute to finish it. I could travel round. I could get out and fail it, or I could get back into here and complete like that, ladies and gentlemen. How cool is it? Is coming along very, very nicely now. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. There is our new quest timer and UI setup. So if we get in the medic cart and start the quest, you see the timer is ticking down. We've got our levels and seats. We can travel around, pick it up, and we can take them back, hopefully before the time runs out. If you imagine your world being the size of San Andreas with people stopping you, you've got to run around, you've got to collect passengers. It's going to take even longer to do, so the timer can be set accordingly. It's all very generic for you to do, and then right at the end, you can now complete the task with everything there. In the next tutorial, we're going to look at adding the failure timer. So instead of getting out instantly fails, it instead ceases all the timer, ceases all the UI, and says you've got 30 seconds to re-enter the vehicle before you fail. And then after that, we're going to look into making the passengers take some time to get into it. So this will be a great time for me to do some mocap animations for us, where the passenger gets in, climbs over the cart, and sits down like they need to. But our minigame is really taking shape now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. If you've got any issues, please let me know below. If you've got any suggestions that you'd like to see, please also let me know. It's fun to see. Thank you for watching. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next time.